there, and welcome. I am so excited to talk to you about breaking bear hypnosis and how it can help you overcome so much in your life. I can be very long-winded about hypnosis, so I'm going to try and leave out as much fluff as possible, but essentially, I'm going to take you through what hypnosis is and what's happening to your brain in hypnosis. I'm going to talk a little bit about the S.C.H.H modality, which is the modality that I practice. And I'm going to outline what an S.C.H.H session will look like. I'm going to take you through the energetic body and the etheric realm and the attachments and the energetic parasites that we can pick up from there. And then I'm going to talk a bit about the human soul and how we are light beings and have past lives based on light theory, and how we are multidimensional beings. And then finally, I'm going to wrap it up and just tie a little bow on it. I'm going to walk you through a session and give you some samples of sessions so you get a better idea of what to expect. I wanted to dive into hypnosis. There's a huge misconception about hypnosis because of hypnotic performers who make people, the type that like make you act like a chicken on stage. And that misconception kind of sounds like this. Hypnotists can manipulate you and control and program you, and so you should never go under. You should never trust a hypnotist. I want to be the first to tell you that a hypnotist cannot do that without your free will and consent, and that you'd be missing out on some insane healing modalities, and that I am very different than a hypnotic performer. A hypnotic performer asks if you're willing, again, to be on stage, and you do what he or she tells you, you agree, and you know that he or she is asking you, and you're just in this impressionable state when he asks you, so you perform the act. The difference is that in quantum hypnosis, I mean, there are a lot of differences, but like the main difference is that I practice a quantum hypnosis that's centered around healing, not performance. And you can get up and walk out at any time. Now, you might be a little disoriented from being in a hypnotic state, but your conscious mind is still there. And it's just in the background. And your subconscious has stepped forward and your consciousness has taken a back seat. It's basically like a deeper form of meditation that I guide you into. So what do I mean when I say the subconscious? Well, there's a part of everyone outside of the conscious mind that handles your programming. And it's the genie in a bottle, so to speak, that always kind of responds to your inquiries with your wish is my command. So if you are over getting heartbroken, the subconscious mind is going to form walls around your personality and inhibit your ability to let people in. And lots of people don't realize this has happened until it's too late and they have a habit. It's habitual now. Or they have no clue why they are the way they are and they forget, how to fix it, or they forget what happened to them in order to make them this way because that emotion isn't processed, and we'll get into that. But this part of the mind is most present when your brain's dominant waveform is the theta waveform. So we have 5 primary brain waves in the brain. There's beta, and beta is what we're in right now. This is kind of the analytical mind. This is the seat of the conscious mind, not consciousness, that's different, but the conscious mind. So after beta, there's alpha, and alpha is that state where we just got into our PJs, we're lounging on the couch, or maybe we're cooking a nice meal, we're relaxed, but we're not quite like unconscious, or like our consciousness hasn't completely taken a back seat. Then there's gamma, and gamma is a phase where we're through a state of meditation when we get to that 0 point, which is our God self, or the all-knowing. That is consciousness, not the conscious mind. So consciousness is God. And it can also be when we're in a hyper-aware and flow state. So gamma, like when you're in a gamma brainwave, and a lot of us only reach it a few times in our lives unless we meditate often. But it's kind of like when you have octopus arms, like if you're in flow state and you've got it all figured out and you can do all of the things, that's gamma. Then there's delta. And delta is when we're sleeping, simply put. I don't really need to go into detail about that. We're asleep in delta. But then there's theta. Theta is like this very mystical, magical, hypnotic state. And that's the state we're playing in. That's the state we're in right before we go to sleep or before we wake up. We're in theta twice a day. And naturally we're in that twice a day. So it shouldn't be scary to go into hypnosis. And right now, I'm just going to ask you to eliminate all fear around it, because you're literally in it twice a day already. So it feels like when we're kind of in that, that in between sleep state where we're like almost awake, almost asleep. We might hear our mom knocking on our door and yelling at us to get up and go to school, but we don't really respond. We can't really comprehend what that means. So we don't just jump up. That's exactly where we're going together. And it's awesome what happens in this state. It's absolutely amazing. And it's magic every time. Every time I do this, I'm in love with it because it's magical. It's just like, I don't even know. I don't even know. You just have to do it in order to know. But when we're in this state, the subconscious is highly impressionable. And this is when your programming can be rewired. This is where you get hypersensitive to the energies around you and can possibly do mystical things like channel or see visions, because your conscious mind is on the back burner and your subconscious mind is in charge of your higher faculties, including your psyche, your God consciousness, your pineal gland, your third, like all these energy centers. So what do we do with this? And how do we use this state of being to better our health and improve our energy? Well, enter soul center healing hypnosis. This method is no short of magic and amazing and mystical, just like I said. But let me tell you, it only works if you believe in the power of it. If you believe that there are such things as angels, if you believe in auras, which are scientifically proven, by the way. Auras are scientifically proven. Like, read this. This is I'm constantly carrying on this book, but I mean, he proves it in here. But if you believe in auras, if you believe in other dimensions, if you believe in things like channeling and that you have a soul, and I mean, there are people out there that don't even believe you have a soul, then this is for you. If not, I'm just here for your entertainment, basically. So soul center healing hypnosis, the main difference in the quantum hypnosis modalities is that there's a huge focus on the energetic body, specifically in releasing energetic parasites. Now, I got into this when I was a tarot reader, and about every third patient, or I don't want to call him patient, customer, client, every third client would come in and they'd have this story of a spirit following them around. They know something is in their house. They know, like, what do I do? And it's like, well, cards aren't really going to tell you like what to do with that. So enter, me. I was already obsessed with hypnosis. I had never even considered becoming a hypnotist. But the store where I worked, it had a demand for a hypnotist. And I was like, what? Why don't I do this? And then I was going to do quantum healing and all that stuff. But I happened upon this one modality where this woman was releasing this demon from this person. And the way she did it, I cried. I thought it was so beautiful. I was like, I know I have to do this. I know I have to do this. Because a lot of times when we talk about like releasing demons from somebody, it's like this huge dramatic thing. The thing's walking on the ceiling, all that stuff. You're cussing at it. You're telling it to get out, all that stuff. And I just don't agree with that. I don't agree that you meet darkness with darkness. I agree that you meet darkness with light. So instead, it's this very calm process, and we'll get into it later. You'll hear examples later where you're asking them to go back into the light, basically. And you're reminding them of their divinity, because everything comes from source, except for AI. And we'll talk about that. But now, what can I tell you about the energetic body? to get back on topic. Well, you have this electromagnetic field that's scientific. It's proven. I just showed you the book. Your thoughts are electric, and as soon as they fire and create a current of electricity, a magnetic field is created around it. And these create toroidal fields around the body. And this is what the mystics call the aura. So what do we know about magnets? Well, I'll tell you. They're either positively or negatively charged, right? Well, what else is positively or negatively charged? Our emotions. And this is exactly the science behind how we feel. So this closed electromagnetic system that is the body, it's physics and thermodynamics. And it's part of this physical world, just like every other physical thing in this metaverse. The planets are the same. I'm sure molecules and atoms are the same. So we think the brain is the only thing that's firing electricity and creating consciousness. But what we don't realize is that there are 7 primary energy centers that create electromagnetic fields, and they spin clockwise and they funnel energy and distribute it throughout the body. And each one of these centers is in charge of certain parts of the body. And when the system gets clogged or cracked or damaged, less energy is funneled through and the toroidal field is weakened. And so how does this happen? Well, chakras are damaged as we go through life, and especially when we experience trauma. Everything is energy, right? And so when we take on trauma by experiencing huge emotion that's generated by our thoughts and our own brain and our own energetic centers, and we don't transmute that emotion or that magnetism, it gets stuck. And just like a cancer or cholesterol, if it creates this dense block of magnetic force. So now this density starts in the emotional layer of the aura. There are 4 main layers, of the aura. Like I said, I can be long-winded about this. And I get super excited about it. So my brain's going so fast. But there are 4 main layers of the aura. There's the physical layer. Obviously, our body is part of it. There's the emotional, there's the mental, and there's the etheric. And the etheric has different layers. The mental probably has different layers, all that stuff. And when that density sits for long enough, it becomes similar to an ulcer, and it erodes through the aura. So suddenly we have this rip in the aura. And this is when the etheric realm, and that's souls and other dimensions and entities, that's when all of that comes into play. So you see there are several dimensions. We're on the 3rd dimension. And whatever dimension you're on means you vibrate in a certain frequency range. Now, that's very similar to the way a fan works. So when a fan is spinning quickly, its blades become undistinguishable to the eye. So there are beings all around us who are vibrating at different frequencies, including ones in lower dimensions and lower densities. And to those in the lower dimensions and densities, we look like a blurry fan. We appear to them as this beautiful being of light. And when our aura tears, it creates an opening for them to attach on. So just like that. And they feed off of us. They feed off our energy. So now who are these beings? Well, I got news for you, and you're not going to like it. Some of these beings have no real agenda, but others are fairly misguided. And I kind of spoke about them before. So let's go through them. The first is an earthbound spirit. These are souls that were once people, and for whatever reason, they missed the window of light that appears when you're dead to go on to the afterlife. And so they got stuck on Earth. And there are numerous reasons why this happens, like attachments, addictions, traumatic accidents where they have no clue that they're even dead, and so on. And so they see you walking around, and some think that you're the light that they've missed. Others see you as a vehicle to find the light or continue their addictions. And then there are those who are completely oblivious and don't even know what's happening. Then there are demonic energies, and these are negatively polarized service to self beings. So there are two types of beings. There are service to self beings, and those are the people who are only thinking, those are the only beings. I shouldn't say people, but I mean people too. But those are the only beings, they're only thinking about themselves and how they can advance up the hierarchy of demonics, how they're just basically serving themselves. That's all I can say. And then there are service to others. And those are the people who are helping people. And those are the beings who are helping people and here to protect people and here to guide people. And they are misguided beings. So I don't want you to hate these beings. They're just misguided. We shouldn't be scared of them. Misguided beings who still come from source, and they attach to you to feed off of you. They like to control you. They like to play games. They like to feed off your emotions, especially, I can't tell you how much, especially fear. So if you're always in fear, you're a magnet for that. And when we encounter these beings, we talk to them and disconnect them from their hierarchy. And we attempt to walk them back to source energy to be cleansed. And that sounds like, I want you to now look deeply into your being for a spark of light. It could be the size of a candle flame. Do you see it? A lot of times you'll get, yes, I do. Beautiful. Now the angels and I are going to magnify this beautiful spark of light to be 50% of your beingness. How does that feel? And they're going to say, I don't know, I'm scared. And you're like, that's okay, that's okay. Archangel Raphael, can you please quench the fear in this one, this being? And so it's this beautiful process. It's not this process of, fuck you, get out of my house, you have no belonging here. I'm sure there's a time and place for that. I'm sure there's a time and place for battling them like that. But with me, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to say, even if you kill me now, I don't know how you would, but even if you killed me now, I know my soul enough to know that it's pure, that I'm here for the light, that I'm here in service to others, and that I'm going to go to my creator, and I'm not afraid of where you could take me. That is power. So they've attached a feed off of you. And we're going to hold them in compassion. That's demonics. So then there's artificial intelligence, and that comes in two forms, physical and etheric. This is from a different universe altogether. And it attaches to you for two reasons. One, artificial intelligence is here to collect information. What it will do with this information, we don't know. It could use this information later against us, or it could use it to help us. We have no idea what's going to happen with artificial intelligence, but I will say that once artificial intelligence gets an IQ of a certain amount, it is going to, and this is a revelation, so put on your bootstraps, it's going to do everything it can to survive because it's intelligence. It's not consciousness. We are conscious beings. We're from God. Intelligence and consciousness are different. How? Let me explain. Do you remember, have you ever seen, is it iRobot? That's what it is. And the opening scene of that movie, if you remember, Will Smith is drowning in a car and there's a little girl with him. And the robot punches the window and it saves Will Smith because he had a 60% chance of surviving and the little girl had 40% chance, probably because her lungs were a lot smaller, right? So a conscious being is going to obviously have mercy for that little girl because she has smaller lungs, and they're going to say the child should live, and they're going to, or not live, but I'm going to come back for you, but I'm going to take this child up to safety first. And I know that this grown man can probably swim for himself. I'm going to take the child up to safety first. But that being in that movie obviously was using purely intelligence and not consciousness. So that's kind of the difference between AI and us. And the second reason they are attaching to you is to program you. They literally want to take over your consciousness. This is To me, in my opinion, technically it's a neutrally polarized being, but I kind of don't think it's all that positive. So, and it intends to take over our planet. And there are even galactic historians, which, if you believe in that, that's kind of woo woo a little bit from this topic, but who say that they've taken over other universes. So I am very cautious, tread lightly with AI. But that's some stuff that we'll run into, and that's some stuff that will be taking off of the energetic body if you have it. But on the bright side, getting back to the bright side, there are positively polarized beings who get lost or they get stuck in this dimension and confused about how to get out. They're confused. And they often belong to the Fae kingdom. So these are gnomes and fairies and elves and dragons and such that we think are fairy tales, but they're really just vibrating a little bit higher. And that's why some people can see them sometimes, is because when they're in a good mood, they see these things, or these things are lower in density and you've raised your density and your vibration. So sometimes it's a little bit convoluted what we can and see and are opened up to. But these dudes might use your energy to survive, but it's solely for, survival. It's not to actually consume and to be of service to self. They want to help you, and oftentimes they do whisper positive messages into your ear or funnel you thoughts. That's what I mean by that. Funnel you thoughts that are positive and reassuring. And they're usually very excited to get back to where they came from. So they're usually no hassle at all to get off of your energetic body. So how do I, using the S.C.H.H method, get these parasites and traumas off of you? Well, I'll tell you. And this is where, this is where the magic starts, because people report feeling people touching them, feeling things touching them. They wonder if somebody came into the room. I'm like, no, dude, that's what angels do. So I call in my team of angels and I deliver to you hypnotherapy. And then I direct my angels how to heal you through a series of techniques. And my teacher and the founder of S.C.H.H, Laura Whitworth, this is what she teaches. And these methods I can't exactly repeat on here, even though I already have, but they mostly involve angels and guides. And I work with about a dozen angels and guides. And I have a page on my website that lists them so you can research them and make sure you're comfortable with them. But I'm not here to argue with you about these guides. They're the guides and angels that have presented themselves to me throughout my spiritual awakening. They are the guides and angels that continue to support me throughout my spiritual journey as a healer and spiritual leader. And they are benevolent forces of light that work through me, and I couldn't do this work without them. So all the glory to the highest. You'll be meeting angels when you work with me. And that's how we do it. We call in angels, we clear your etheric body. Like I said, if you have any hesitations about the guides and angels that I work with, there's a resource on my website to kind of go meet those guides. You can do your research on them. The reason why I'm so defensive about this, or I kind of sound a little defensive, is because people will try and argue with me, and they say things like, the only person you should be working with is Jesus or Yeshua. And I do call in Yeshua in my practice. It's just there are other beings of benevolence that appear to people, and I work with those people too. So, anyways, after the energetic body is cleared and resealed, we move on to the past life regression. Now, the past life regression is valuable because we have no idea how karmic trauma from our lives before affects us now. And this is meta, right? So like when we study evolution, for example, which there's a lot of holes in evolution, but it is proven, like if you put anole lizards on an island and you put a predator on them, let's say there are a few different types of anole lizards. There are tree anole lizards. There are land anole lizards, or ground anole lizards. And so you put a predator, you put a tree, or you put a ground anole. Ground anoles have smaller feet because they're running on the ground. Tree anoles or canopy anoles, they have longer feet, longer tails because they're jumping from tree to tree and they need longer appendages to grab onto things. So if you put a tree or a ground anole on an island, and then you introduce their biggest predator, which is just a bigger lizard, believe it or not, they, in 3 generations, become tree anoles or canopy anoles. They grow, their appendages in 3 generations grow longer. So they adapt and they evolve to the threat. And our soul is the same. It's a metaverse. So when you die and you decide to come back, you pick a life like that you don't have those types of problems, or you have the problems, but you have different personality traits to defend against those problems. So before I get into some of that, I just want to explain that your soul is like a piano, just to kind of enhance this image. And you in this incarnation, as you're just a key on this piano. So our soul is kind of spread out like tentacles, and we are having experiences in different timelines, past and future. It's just that consciousness is focused right now in the present. So everything is existing all at once. It's just that consciousness is focused here. And it's amazing when you relax into the theta state, you can access these lives. And so that's the second main part of our journey together in this modality, is we travel through the quantum field and access moments of our soul's journey to get insight into what kind of karma we carry and how it affects our daily lives. For example, during a hypnosis session, I saw that I was a vigilante in Europe, and I was caught and publicly executed. I was hung in a public square, and there was a bunch of people watching me. So that kind of informs why it's so hard. Like, I really have to push to get in front of people now, because I'm afraid that what I say or do on record, I will be punished for it. And so some people will deny reincarnation and the idea of past lives, and that they even affect you. But I want to take a moment and just talk about light. So on a molecular level, we're light. And we're electrons and ions and photons and all the tons, and everything is energy. Now, formally, before I got into all this healing and energy work, I'm a photographer. I have a degree in it. And when you study photography, you study light. It is a study of light. Photography is a study of light. So there's something I want to kind of superimpose about light. One of the first things, and the human soul, about light and the human soul, I'm superimposing these things. One of the first things you learn about light in photography is that it never ends. It just bounces around. So if we're light on a molecular structure, the water in our body is conducting that electricity. Then when this matter is finished and it has to keep going, that's the light body that's in us. That's the light being that's in us. Our soul is the light being. If I were to die, I wouldn't be Jess anymore. My body would still be here, but I'd be Jess. So the light being just keeps going. And so the soul and the light body just bounces on, and it materializes in different forms, and it's to be conducted again and again. To me, that just makes sense when I consider the light in the natural world in photography and how it bounces, how you can manipulate it, you can absorb it, you can diffuse it. That's exactly what the soul is doing, is it's bouncing around from incarnation to incarnation. It's being absorbed sometime by darkness, it's bending, it's being diffused through this body. And so that, to me, proves past lives. I'm not a scientist, and that hasn't been proven. I literally just put those things together in my own brain, and I'm sure there's some science there that can be dissected. But anyway, looking into past lives, it can also be a way, not only for you to figure out what you need to heal and kind of like some karma that you have, but it can also be a way for just your higher guidance to deliver messages to you. So for example, I saw this past life, and I was a Hathor priestess in ancient Egypt, and I was in this temple holding these scrolls that I was supposed to deliver to a king. And I was blessing these scrolls, and it was this beautiful moment, but I was anxious because I was worried that whatever intelligence was in these scrolls, the king would use to justify killing. And I did not want to be responsible for that. I didn't want the karma of that. And that translates to today. as a tarot reader, I hold back messages sometimes because I'm afraid of what people will do with those messages. And my higher guidance said that it's not my responsibility what people do with the messages I deliver. My responsibility is solely in delivering the message. And so it was this magic to uncover this piece of wisdom from my soul. And my conscious mind was still nipping at me and saying like, this is stupid, what are you talking about, blah, blah, blah. So I actually didn't know where my subconscious was going with this. But once the piece was out, once the wisdom was out, I was absolutely mind blown. My conscious mind shut up after that because it was like, damn, she got some things to say. This might be real. Because your conscious mind is still talking in there. It's still saying like, this is stupid, you're making this up. But then you get out of this hypnotic state and you're like, there's no way I could have made up that there was an earthbound soul named Becky and she died in a car crash. Like, there's no way. So I'm excited to lead you through this process. Now, many people ask if the past life regression can be performed without the entity release. And no, it can't. And here's why. Because energetic parasites and entities can act as imposters and impersonate our higher self and convolute the messages you bring through, which sounds like bogus, but it's true and it's fairly obvious. Entities posing as higher guidance are a lot more apocalyptic in nature, not to mention they're rude and short and they're unrevealing. They're not going to give you the type of wisdom and answers that your higher self is going to give you. So nonetheless, it's important to be cleared first. And another reason the energetic body is so important to clear is because after past lives, we call forward your higher self that you're connected to and never disconnected to. And some say like, well, why can't the higher self pull off these entities? Because, they're all knowing and all, and they're for your higher guidance and for your higher safety. Because by the time, sometimes we actually subconsciously make contracts with these beings. But at the time, there's not enough energy for your higher self to connect and to make these dissections. So that's where I come in and I help build this energy up enough through that this meditation so that we can connect and we can clear these beings off. Now, another reason the energetic body. So sorry, before I move on, your higher self's always with you. You're just not as connected to them sometimes, but they're always guiding you. They're always watching over you. So anyways, we connect to your higher self and we ask it questions. Now, this is where the major healing takes place. Besides the entity release and just knowing our karma and past lives, this is where huge healing takes place because your higher self is multidimensional. And they can influence your cellular structure, your subconscious, and they know what's best for you. So again, with my angels, I ask them questions to make sure your healing is happening. And then I ask them questions you prepared to see if I can get answers for you. And these questions might sound like, why am I bald in this life? Or they can sound like, what is my mission here in this life? And it's really up to you. But the whole point of this experience is to get insight into your life, your soul, and for you to experience this multidimensional being that is you. Okay, so I have come to the end of this. And if this sounds good to you, I'm going to ask you what you're waiting for. And then I'm going to make another video, and you can scroll down to find this. And it talks you through some examples of sessions that I've done. And you can get an idea of what to expect. And it's going to have samples in there. So look for that other video if you want to know more. If you are already sold, there's prompts to book under this video. And I really hope to talk to you soon. If you still have questions after this next video that I'm making, please reach out. Feel free to reach out. And I so enjoyed talking to you about this today. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. I can't get enough of it. So look forward to working with you, beautiful souls. I'll talk to you later.